We begin with the decision with major implications for the economy and your money. The Supreme Court dealing with a major blow to President Trump's economic policy, striking down his sweeping use of tariffs.
It was a 6-3 ruling today, with 2 justices appointed by President Trump himself siding with the majority. The president railed against the decision today, calling it deeply disappointing and saying he was absolutely ashamed of the justices who voted against his policy.
And the president has already announced alternative plans to keep his tariff policy in place. But what about all the money that was already paid?
Well, CBS LA's Amy Johnson begins our team coverage tonight to break all that down for us. Amy?
Well, Pat and Juan, within the last half hour, President Trump posted on Truth Social that he just signed a global 10% tariff on all countries, effective almost immediately. It's a sign he's not backing down from his trade agenda, despite the court's decision.
The Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs is deeply disappointing.
President Trump sharply criticized the Supreme Court justices who struck down his sweeping tariff policy. That includes 2 justices he nominated during his first term, Gorsuch and Barrett.
I'm ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed.
In a 6-3 decision, the High Court ruled the president does not have the authority to impose tariffs under a 1977 emergency powers law that he used to wage taxes on nearly all U.S. global trading partners.
This is all about the idea that the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce, that the Constitution gives Congress the power to impose taxes.
This Chicago area toy company, Learning Resources, was part of the lawsuit challenging the tariffs, arguing the taxes would devastate their business.
We're feeling vindicated. We felt that the tax was an unlawful tax, and we're excited to see the Supreme Court take a very strong stance in favor of the equal application of law to all of us.
Despite the Supreme Court's ruling, President Trump says he will continue his policy by collecting a new global tariff using a different law.
Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122, over and above our normal tariffs already being charged.
A CBS News poll in December found most Americans, we're talking 63%, opposed tariffs on imported goods. State Attorney General Rob Bonta praised the High Court ruling on tariffs.
They have been creating chaos and uncertainty. They have been raising costs for Americans, everyday consumers as well as businesses, and they are now struck down.
Now, the big question now, will consumers get refunds? The Supreme Court did not address that, but President Trump said it could take years to litigate. But Governor Newsom wants the refunds now. In a statement, he said, quote, "Time to pay the piper, Donald. These tariffs were nothing more than an illegal cash grab that drove up prices and hurt working families, so you could wreck long-standing alliances and extort them." He also cited a report from Yale that found the average family lost more than $1,700 last year because of those tariffs. So still, we're going to have to wait and see.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Amy. And we do have more on the impact to some small businesses.
That's right, Pat. The tariffs have made a huge impact on local businesses, with some saying it's cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, they are now hoping the Supreme Court ruling could spell relief. Our team coverage continues with CBS LA's Jasmine Viel in Van Nuys, where she checked back in with businesses that we've been following for months.
It's a new year at Aldic Home.
I think one of these branches is going to be great.
But it was a holiday season the store barely made it through.
Sales were probably about flat.
Store manager Brian Gold, whose family has owned the business for 70 years, says tariffs drove up the cost of nearly everything they brought in, from Christmas trees to lights.
But we did end up spending at least $200,000 on tariff checks that were written to the government or written to importers based on their increased prices. Correct. These are the trees that we've designed.
And they had to pass on some of the costs to customers.
We had to increase the price between 5 and 10%. We ate the rest.
When we spoke to him last April, he was afraid the tariffs on China would force him to close.
When it was 145%, we were thinking instead of this big, beautiful Christmas background. We'd have going out of business signs.
Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs.
That's why Friday's Supreme Court ruling brought a sense of relief after months of uncertainty.
We're happy that it looks like the tariffs might go away.
This is what you're paying more for.
Exactly. So this was an additional 10 to 15% that was added last year on top of our leather.
Across town at Claire V, a Los Angeles-based handbag and apparel brand, President Molly Leonetti says since April of last year, the company has spent $1.6 million in tariffs and had to absorb the cost. They expected to pay another $1.3 million in just the first half of 2026, which she now hopes won't be the case.
To be able to take that money, redirect it to growth, to hiring, to all the things that we need it for as a mid-sized growing business.
But the uncertainty still remains.
And now that we have products that's already been ordered, to be able to adjust those prices accordingly.
It was really tough last year.
As these business owners wait to see whether surviving next season will be any easier than the last. Gold says a Christmas tree factory in China even shut down because of these tariffs. Now, the federal government has collected hundreds of millions of dollars in tariffs since the start of last year. And as thousands of companies potentially seek those refunds, experts say it's going to be this long, complicated process that could take months to years. Here in Van Nuys, Jasmine Viel, CBS LA.